So I do offer you 2 emails, and I check those emails throughout the day, so I'll be able to get in touch with you to get back to you. Something about me, just so you know, why am I up here? Who am I? Why do I talk like this? And why am I all involved in movies? Well, I've studied movies for most of my life. My professional career has been involved with motion pictures. I've written several books about them. My primary study of film has been the 1950s, and I wrote a few books on science fiction films of the 1950s. And so in a sense, I'm a historian. I always prefer to call myself a cinema archaeologist because I like digging up old movies. I like looking at what films were all about back in the dark ages. I mean, I go all the way back to the cinema of silence and the experimental cinema back in the late 1800s when they had no idea what they had, when film was nothing more than a novelty. So that's kind of what I do. I was also a talking head in a documentary that was so world-renowned that it disappeared. Also, well, there's my latest books, things that I've written about. As you can see, lately I've been writing about some television, the crossover from movies to television. And I edit a magazine because I'm also very, very much interested in old-time radio drama. And I edit a magazine called Radiogram. It's a publication of a society out of Los Angeles that preserves old-time radio, that sort of thing. And if you're aware of the cultural scene in Eugene, then that also means I am part of the Radio Redux program that we just finished this weekend by doing a radio adaptation of a great film called The Philadelphia Story. My job at Radio Redux is to talk. I'm a talking head again, and I give a pre-show discussion lecture about the program that they're about to see. So anyway, that's free too. You don't have to have a ticket to get in to see that. So if anybody wants to hear, our next show is in November, the first part of November, and it's all about a show, something that you people have never heard of. It's a Fibber, McGee, and Molly show combined with a detective show called Pat Novak for Hire, and I'll be talking about that sort of thing. So anyway, if you're really interested in this kind of stuff, you can come to those lectures. So we move on. That's who I am. What's this course all about? Well, first of all, again, I'm going to emphasize this throughout. Don't call me. There is no reason for you to call me because probably I won't be around to get your message. I'm only on campus once a week. And so if indeed you call like at 10:30 on Tuesday morning, I probably am gone and I won't get your message until the following week. That's why I give you the 2 email addresses, because that's the best way to get in touch with me, and I check those emails, both of them, throughout the day. All right, and so with that involved, I'm going to just tell all of you that you will use email. You will use email. You will use email. You'll go to bed tonight with that on your mind. The textbook for this class, it is called American Cinema, American Culture. Now, let me tell you how the textbook works. The textbook by John Belton, who is a film scholar, and he knows what he's talking about. It's an excellent book. It is a companion to this film series, all right? They were written in, the movies were made, the documentaries were made, and Belton wrote the book that amplifies or complements the video series. So yes, the book is crucial. But I want to emphasize this. You don't have to have the most recent edition of the book. The first edition of the book is probably more accurate with regard to what you're seeing on the screen because, again, the book was written to complement what was seen on the screen. The newer editions of the book you would enjoy is because Belton, he updates the examples. So he brings in newer films to give examples of things. So any copy works. But it's not a textbook in which I say you just have to have the most recent edition. So if you can find a copy in a used bookstore of the first edition for a nickel, you're way ahead of the game. So that's how that works. So that's how the textbook is, because I almost fainted when I saw the price of the latest edition of the book. And I'm just scratching my head, and I was going, I feel so sorry. I feel guilty for what I'm doing to students. I mean, you have to go rob a bank in order just to get the book. And that's wrong, but what else can you do? That's the way life is. And having written books, I like to get my royalties too, and my books sell so well that that's why I'm still teaching. All right. What is this course all about then? This is what it is. It's an introductory course that brings Hollywood filmmaking into clear focus as three things. First, as an art form. That is something that you people already know. That's why you're in this class. You have probably encountered some kind of a film class somewhere, probably an English class or something like that, in which a lot of things are talked about with regard to film. And the primary thing is, in order for you to watch the film, in order for you to study the film, it has been argued that it is an art form. I'm not taking anything away from that. That is true. Film is also an economic force. And what I do in my film classes is I always start with this. Here is a maxim. Here is something that is crucial to understanding my approach to film, and that is this. Film, and we're talking about Hollywood film, film is a business first. The people who make films don't give a rip about art. It's that simple. They make films for a simple purpose, and that is to make money, and to make lots of money. And when they can add little toys and soundtrack albums and all of that other kind of stuff that goes with the film, that just means lots of money and more money. Okay, that's the cynical side of it. Does that fact that Hollywood producers make films to make money, does that cancel art? No. You can still produce some very significant artistic creations under that category of just making money. That's where the great filmmakers come from. When we look at great filmmakers, especially now we're talking about Hollywood film, when we look at the great filmmakers, they were able to exist in that world of commerce with the idea that, yeah, we're exploiting things, yeah, we're going to make money, but yet we can do it in a very interesting way so that people can look at it and say, you know, this is more than just business as usual. There is something beautiful about this film. It is the same way that we talk about an artistic rendering, about a work of art. By looking at that film and the certain ways that we see it and hear it, especially, when talkies came alive, when we see and now hear it and we go, there's something special about this film. And so yes, the art does exist, but we can never forget the reason for that film. The reason for that film is to make money. Sometimes the movie doesn't make any money and it's a great work of art. Yeah, it failed, but we look at it today and go, that's a good movie. Other times, we have films that make a ton of money, and you can throw it away. There's nothing to say about that movie at all, other than it stinks, but it made a lot of money. So that's kind of the world we live in. And the other side of this, part 3 of this, is that it is a system of representation and communication. In other words, it's a rhetorical device. It communicates to us. It says something about us. Good films, I argue, always say something about us individually, something about we as a human being, how we respond to other human beings, what we think about the world, how the world affects us. As, it puts it in a psychological mode in that regard. That's what I think a good film does. And we can walk away from a film like that having a better understanding of ourselves. And if we have a better understanding of ourselves, we'll also have a better understanding of you, because you're human too. And when we share those human experiences, which a good film does, when we share those experiences, we all realize, you know, we're in the same boat, and we're all going to run into the same things. And, you know, I just can't say somehow I'm better than you are, because I just saw a guy in the movies out there that, you know, I related to. Somehow this guy spoke to me and all the issues that he had. So it is a rhetorical device. It is a rhetorical device that tells us something about ourselves. Okay, the American cinema also probes the deeper meanings of American movies by the hidden message of genres. This is their term. I don't like that term, but it's the term they use in the videos. And what it means is, what are they really saying? What are these hidden messages in genres? And we all know what genres are, and we'll talk about them briefly. But those are all the movies that we like to go to again and again and again because we like them, or there are movies that we avoid because we don't like them. That is, like, we give them a title, or that is, we give them a name. Westerns, mysteries, or what everybody likes to see. You know, most people like film noir, that kind of stuff. And so there are, what they'll argue, are hidden messages. You'll also find the social psychological effects of style. And that is exactly right, because we were just briefly, before we started our program, we were just chatting briefly about style and how the style has changed and how we have cameras that can't sit still anymore. What is that style telling us? What is that communicating to us? And, you know, we were talking earlier about Japanese film, and we were talking about Kurosawa. And Kurosawa is a very dynamic filmmaker, you know, moving his camera, you know, sweeping vistas that he'd like to take, you know, photograph, versus a contemporary of his, Ozu. And Ozu just plops his camera down, turns it on, lets people interact, and turns it off. Then he cuts to another scene, turns it on. You know, that's a lot of difference there. What do those styles, what does that communicate? What does it say to us? What are we seeing? How introspective is it for us? And also the mutual influence of society and popular culture. It's always the same thing. That's going to be the question. Okay, you always hear politicians and do-gooders and all kinds of people out there that always say there's a mass murderer running loose and he's just slashing people to death and he gets it from watching movies, okay? And then at the same time, the people in Hollywood, they don't like hearing that, and they say, oh, come on, it's just a movie. It doesn't affect anybody at all. Okay, so the bottom line that we always ask is, does a movie like that influence a mad killer to go out and start slashing people to death? Okay, what's the answer? That's right. The correct answer is yes. But only in the sense that the correct answer also means that it is just reflecting the way people are to begin with. It's a mutual combination thing of this. And if you don't think that films don't influence us, why do they spend bazillions of dollars every year at the Super Bowl to introduce a 1-minute film to influence you? That's why they do it, because it can influence you. So yes, it can, but at the same time, you can't blame all the ills on something like that either. Okay, boom, boom. The schedule works this way. Each week, you're going to see a 60-minute, I call it a lesson because after all it's a class, but it's really a documentary film. You're going to see it on Comcast 23, or you can watch it there, down there as you see on the bottom, that website there. The entire series is on the Annenberg site. So you're not bound by the cable system. If you have a computer, you can watch all of these films. All of them are on there, and you can watch them anytime you want to. And if you want to, you can watch all 10 films at once if you want a marathon some night. Or you can just pick up at any time. So they're all available anytime for you on your computer. Okay, the way the course works is, for the requirements, is and kind of give you the schedule on how it's going to work here is you're going to take a midterm exam. That's your first requirement. And on October 23rd, about a month from now, I will be back in this room and I will give you a review of what we have talked about, what the films have talked about, to assist you in passing the course. Now, you don't have to be here in person for this because it will be streamed once they get it fixed. It will be streamed. And also, it is recorded, and it is posted on YouTube, and I will send you a mass email to everybody. You'll get an email with the address that you can click on, and you can watch it at that time. So the next time that I actually talk to you will be October 23rd. At that time, again, it is a discussion of the midterm. And then the midterm exam will follow, and it will start on October 26th, and it'll run through November 2nd. All right? It will be in the testing center. So you will have to, in person, go over to the testing center to take the exam. You will check the availability of hours on their, I've got it, their website is in your syllabus, so you can just pull that up, and they'll tell you the hours of operation, so that you can get there in time to do it. That is, you'll just have to pull up their hours and say, okay, yeah, they're open 8 to 5 or 8 to 9 or whatever hours they are, and on Thursday, and I can do it in there, and I'll just go in and take the test. What you don't want to do is to walk in there when they're going to close at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whenever, and you walk in at 5 minutes to 6 and say, I want to take the exam. They're not going to let you do it. And so you will have lost out on taking the exam because I am just a mean, rotten person, and I'm not going to let you take it again or take a makeup. Okay, then the final exam is the same process. The final exam is November 30th through December 7th. That is, I will also be in a week ahead of that. I will give you a review. So anyway, it's the same thing, and I give you 7 days, just like the midterm. I give you 7 days to do it. So what do we do? Okay, so what is involved? And I think I left out a slide, just to come to think about it, so I better say it right now. I do give you a study guide, by the way. I think I left that slide out. The study guide, there will be a study guide on Moodle that you can download. So what I talk about as a review for you, there'll also be hard copy that you can download off Moodle and have a reference there for you. And also, I left out that slide. I wonder what happened to this thing. This thing was acting weird today. I think there's something strange going on. It must be a holdover from the eclipse or something. But note card. You can, it's their rules, not mine. You can have a 3x5 note card with you in the testing lab. And so you can kind of take your notes with you to take the exam. And what it is just a 3x5, only one, you're allowed that. And I always say, well, if you can't remember a certain thing, it just confuses you, write that on the note card. The stuff you already know, don't worry about it. So anyway, okay, what do? We watch the video programs. That's what you do. Again, there's that address. It is on your syllabus. The syllabus is also on Moodle, so you can download the syllabus off of Moodle. I don't do much with Moodle at all because I don't like Moodle. We don't get along. And then read appropriate sections of the text. You will see that in your syllabus under each week. There are the chapters that are associated with it. And I know they are according to the 4th edition. That's the edition, the latest edition that I had. So what you have to do, if you don't have the 4th edition, what you have to do is just sort of look at the subject that is being discussed. And such as, if it's under the Western, they're going to talk about the Western. And it might be in the 4th edition, it might be chapter 4, but it might be chapter 3 in the 1st edition, or it might be chapter 8 in the latest edition or whatever. You just have to kind of look it over and say, okay, I know what he's getting at. We're supposed to look at the Western. Okay, take notes unless you've got a brilliant mind and everything that you look at and hear, it stays up there and you can just you know, bring it back at will, but if not, take notes. And then the course requirements. Okay, here we go. The first thing you got to do, this is a requirement of the college. The very first thing you got to do is go on to Moodle, and I ask you a very simple question. And I do look at these things. It's not just busy work, because I am interested in where you're coming from. And all I ask you to do is write down, you know, what your favorite movie is. Just check in with that and tell me, you know, briefly. You don't have to write a whole paper. Just say, I like this kind of movie, or I like this genre, or whatever. And it gives me an idea where you're coming from. And then also, when I collect them all together and I look at it, and I have a very interesting pool of students that I can look at and say, oh my gosh, I never want to see you guys ever again, because every last one of you loves slasher movies. I will never walk out at this campus at night when you're around. You know, that sort of thing. But no, it is very interesting. So it's not just busy work. So I do check these out. But the requirement there is for you to maintain your status in this class. If I hear from you within this week that I know that you've done something, I don't drop you. If you don't do this, if you don't check in like that, what happens is I look at the class roster and I say, this, you know, you haven't done a thing this week, and I'm dropping you. And so I do this administrative drop, and you're gone, your history, and, you know, you lose money and everything else. So just make sure, and I don't really make a hard thing. You just tell me, you know, I like this kind of movie, or I like, this is the best movie that's ever been made ever. I mean, you can just tell me one movie, you know, that says, and I watch this every week, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, it's just 2 exams. That's all that's required of you. You don't have to do anything per week. Some of you, I know you've probably heard this, you know, like, oh my gosh, I got to do, you know, I mean, I work all the time, got to do this thing once a week. No. This is a different kind of class. You just have to have, you know, you just got to know what you're doing and show me you know what you're doing by taking a midterm and a final. And there will be 50 questions. It'll be multiple guess. That's what I call them. There'll be 50 questions, each of them. The midterm will be 50. The final will be 50. You take them in the testing office. I already mentioned that. And you follow the rules. I mean, I've had students that break the rules and they don't get to take the exam. Follow the rules. Don't argue with them. Just do what they ask. Get the test done and get on with your life. There's my 3x5 card. You can take that for reference. Again, I emphasize this. Don't waste your card space on stuff you already know. If things are confusing, that's what you put on the card. And you are responsible for your exam. I'm not. I give you a whole week to take it. And let's see, on Moodle, yeah, there we go, is the study guide. You'll be able to download that once I put that up the week of that review. And extra credit, I do allow you extra credit. You have 2 options. You can write a paper. It's explained in the syllabus about the production elements of a single sequence of any film. The requirement there is produced before 1970. I could be really mean, really evil, and you would hate my guts for the rest of your life because I could force you to watch a black and white movie. Maybe you've changed from my other students who couldn't even entertain the idea that something was made in black and white. Had to be color. Maybe you guys are intelligent enough to know that masters of photography can do them in black and white or in color. Or if so declined, produce your own narrative or documentary. That is explained in the syllabus as well. The details are in that deluxe syllabus on Moodle, and you can download it if you didn't get one here tonight and read the blasted thing. You know, so many students argue with me, and I pull the thing out, and they say, what's it say right there? Well, I didn't read that. Oh, okay. Well, that answers everything. If you're confused, bewildered, rattled, and depressed and desperate like I am, well, then stop by during office hours, and maybe you can set me straight. So what are we looking at? The program schedule. It starts with the classic Hollywood style. What that means, it's not just, that doesn't mean old. That just, classic is a theory, classic, and they'll talk about that. It's the classic Hollywood style as in classicism. Then they move on to the studio system. It's a factory. They set up movie factories. They produce films, and they're producing films. In the early days, you produce one film a week. Can you imagine that? And, you know, theaters ran films for, you know, if you missed it, if you didn't see it that night, you're not going to see it again. Then the star, the development of who the star is. This started in the silent era. This started with they hired performers. They just go out, they'd perform. But the audiences began to demand, well, actually what they did is they started to come to films that repeated, that had the same people, and they began to appreciate these performers. And so they created this star system, and the star would say, you know, the reason why this movie is selling so much money is me. It's not what you guys are doing, it's all about me. They come in to see me, and that means, listen, without me, you're not going to make any money. So you pay me more money, you make more money. Then we go into the genre, and we go to the very distinct American cinema. If it's going to be defined by any genre, it is the Western. For close to 70 years, the Western dominated Hollywood, the Western. Every studio made them. They always made money. Even cheap fly-by-night producers, if they were going to make a movie, they would make a Western because they were pretty much guaranteed that somebody was going to see a Western. The romantic comedy, what we just did over the weekend at Radio Redux, was a perfect example of the romantic comedy. It was one called The Philadelphia Story. So they're going to talk about that. They'll also talk about the combat film. That's what they call it. Everybody else on the planet calls it a war movie, but they call it a combat film. And then everybody's favorite film genre. And the question will be, is it really a genre? Do you really make these films as a genre, or is it a style? Because what we appreciate so much about film noir, is the style. This is the light and shadow, wonderful black and white photography, where people, you know, only, you know, parts of their faces are exposed. Everything else is in shadow. And then the film and television age, which is the 50s, the film school generation, and then we move into the edge of Hollywood, and then that's it. Those are the two emails that you can use if you need to get in touch with me. Remember, you must check the testing center for hours of operation. There will be no makeup examinations, and we come to the end. Thank you. Enjoy the class. I'll see you again in about a month.